Okay, welcome to the Bitcoin Profits Podcast. Today, we're talking about some current events in the Bitcoin space, and then we're getting into my Substack. It's like my second most recent Substack. What is money? Sound pretty interesting? That's interesting.
Let's do it.
Interesting. Okay. So, last podcast, the CBDC versus Bitcoin. Remember, we had the current events when I started talking about the BlackRock and the institutional money coming into Bitcoin. Well, it's interesting because we've had a sudden change in tone for how the media is talking about Bitcoin. Now that BlackRock wants to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be, all those narratives like, oh, it's too much energy, it's bad transactions. Now they're only saying good things about Bitcoin. Yeah, literally the media just flip-flopped. Bitcoin's good for the world. Bitcoin's good for the energy sector.
Who's saying it?
News sources.
Because of BlackRock?
Like Forbes. I think Forbes is where I saw a few articles that were like saying positive things about Bitcoin, but it's like Larry Fink, he's the CEO of BlackRock. He used to say, nah, like Bitcoin is not a real asset class. But I mean, he didn't become CEO of BlackRock not noticing like incoming asset classes, like major players where he can make money, major spaces where he can make money. He didn't become CEO of BlackRock by not noticing things like that. You know what I mean? So he's had, obviously, a change of heart for Bitcoin, which makes sense. So we're seeing a change of tone throughout Wall Street for Bitcoin because major players want to make money and they see Bitcoin as one of the asset classes where if they're going to allocate a portfolio, Bitcoin needs to be in that portfolio. What percentage of that portfolio will probably grow over time, but it's going to be part of their portfolios, and it's one of the asset classes that they're looking at when they're thinking about allocating. The BRICS are pushing forward their gold-backed currency, which in theory challenges the dollar as a global currency. So like they would be making all their transactions in the BRICS gold-backed currency, which a currency backed by gold, it's like we had that like 100 years ago or maybe like 70 years ago. But it's bringing money back to the hard money currencies, because that's what we talk about with Bitcoin, how it's got the scarce supply of 21 million. Well, now they're bringing it back to having a gold-backed currency, which is a scarce asset that backs the underlying value of their currency. So they're starting to see that fiat money just doesn't work as it erodes with nothing backing it. But I don't know why they don't see Bitcoin.
Why did they choose gold out of all things? I mean, like, it worked in the past, but why are they bringing back gold now?
Well, because what else are they going to use? It's like gold's been a money that we'll talk about like throughout history. So what are the alternatives? Obviously Bitcoin.
That's what I'm saying. Why don't they use Bitcoin and be the first people to use it?
I don't
adopt
know.
it.
Dude, maybe they're scared to do it.
I feel like
too soon. I don't know.
Because let's say they do adopt Bitcoin, right? Do you think the U.S. would be on it right away and try to adopt it as well? Or they're going to try and tear it down?
Well, they've already tried to tear it down.
Mm-hmm.
they probably know by now that they can't tear it down. So I think, yeah, the BRICS nation adopts Bitcoin as their currency that they transact in. Have to imagine the United States would be close behind. But that would be pretty crazy. And you think about it, if they're exploring creating a whole new currency backed by gold, where they got to continuously like audit their currency and how much gold they have in reserves, you would think they have at least considered Bitcoin as doing that instead. I mean, Russia is the second biggest miner. So, and Russia is part of the BRICS nations. Brazil, Russia, India, Saudi Arabia, and China. That's what makes up BRICS.
Yeah.
But India was like, I don't know about this. Because they're like an emerging economy. And they don't want to like sever their ties with America and our economy. So they don't want to sabotage that relationship. So they were kind of like, guys, I don't know.
In between, they're neutral.
No, they weren't neutral. They were like, I'm not doing this gold-backed currency with you guys.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I think that's how they responded. And then what I was talking about with the recession or the liquidity entering the market. How this happens, when it happens, because like the way I think of it is the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates until the economy collapses so that they can reset demand, like destroy demand, and then inflation is actually tamed, and they need a whole collapse in order to do so, to actually tame inflation. And then they go on for stimulating after the collapse, and then we go on for growth for another cycle, which is like 8 to 10 years. That cycle has repeatedly happened. Like recession in 2000, 2001, 08, 09. And then maybe it would have happened sooner if they didn't print a bunch of money for COVID. And now it's 2023, raising interest rates until they destroy demand. They're doing it again. So I just have to imagine that we go into a recession. But I listen to a lot of people on YouTube, like economists, like financial advisors, what they think is going to happen. And some people are saying, look, we saw a bottom in the economy, and now we're forced to have a bunch of liquidity enter the system now. They're saying liquidity is coming now. And then other people are saying, look, in order for liquidity to come in, we need to see the recession first. And then the liquidity will come after, because that's their way of getting out of the recession. They basically stimulate the demand again. So first they destroy it, so it tames inflation, and then everybody gets destroyed. And then they add stimulus from here, so people can now recreate that demand, and then we jump out of it. That's the process. So when I'm thinking about buying equities and Bitcoin, which I just buy Bitcoin every day, but when I'm thinking about buying equities too, because I manage my mom's portfolio, I want to wait for that recession. I want to have cash for when this happens so that I can buy equities down here, buy Bitcoin down here. As that stimulus that's coming to get out of this is going to be massive.
So you want a recession?
No. Well, in terms of how I'm aiming to allocate capital and what I think's going to happen is a recession.
Okay.
And if that happens, and I think it happens, and I'm able to snipe these wicks, then, I mean, I'll be happy with my portfolio. But obviously a recession will be terrible. And
What would happen in a recession?
I mean, unemployment goes up. They say people die. So that's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
People die every day, but
like
it's not a good thing.
I was watching The Big Short. You know that movie?
The Big Short.
You ever heard of that?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, that's a must-see movie.
Well, what kind of? Let me look that up. Actually.
It's what happened in 2008. It's a movie about somebody that figured out what was happening before it happened, and then shorted everything, and made billions.
What? Do you know who the guy was?
Michael Burry.
Michael Burry. How did he know that it was going to happen?
Just a really smart guy. And then he dug through the data and found that
he just shorted everything.
He
or what exactly did he short? What stocks and all that?
I think it was mortgage-backed securities. The technical terms for it, I don't really know. But yeah, he created some way to short the mortgages that were basically not gonna be paid back.
He threw in more than $1 billion of his investors' money into credit default swaps.
Yeah.
He must have known what he was doing.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
And then, I mean, the whole movie, they're coming up to him like, okay, I won out. Give me my money back. Like, you're an idiot. What are you doing?
Margot Robbie's in this movie.
Yeah, she's in the movie because, okay, the financial system, it's made to be so complex that normal people just don't even care to understand it, and then listen to the talking heads that guide them through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's hard to believe that it wasn't made that way, because then nobody questions it because they're like, oh, I don't get it. How could you question it if you don't understand it in the first place?
True.
So you just kind of listen to what people say about it. And you're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. That's literally what's brought us to today.
It's like,
but in the movie, Margot Robbie,
yeah,
she basically comes in and she's just in like the bathtub, and she just explains like one of the complex concepts from the movie, like credit default swaps or something. Yeah. She explains how it works, but she's just in a bathtub, like.
Oh, so she knew what she was talking about?
Yeah, I mean, she probably got a script on what to say. But I doubt she actually understood what was going on, okay? Because it's deliberately made to be that complex that nobody fucking gets it.
That's not what I was trying to say. Not obviously she has a script, she's an actor.
Yeah.
I meant like she's supposed to act like a smartass, or intelligent, and she knows what she's talking about.
Right.
But people aren't believing her, and she's trying to like break it down what's happening before the crisis even hit.
Kind of. Okay. But they're talking about like some moving pieces for the crisis to happen. Uh-huh. And to be able to understand why the crisis was going to happen, you didn't understand the concept.
Yes.
So she wasn't even in the movie or like a part of the movie or had a role in the movie. All she did was they had a pop-up of her in a bathtub explaining one of the concepts.
Oh, okay. Never mind. She wasn't the main character.
So yeah, she was not the main character.
Oh, okay.
That was her only role in the movie, was that one concept explanation. But I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
It probably got people's attention. Like, oh, Margot Robbie, what's going on?
That's probably why they added it. Mm-hmm. And they were like, she sounds smart. Smart woman.
How did she know that?
Independent woman. Powerful women.
Okay, so where was I?
Where were you?
The cycles.
Yes.
The last, maybe that's what I was talking about. But the last one, 2008. The next one's coming 2023, 2024. But after it happens, in order to get out of it, they stimulate. So basically, they inject liquidity into the system, more money into the system, which is part of the problem when we talk about money creation, because they will be creating more money in that process. But you pair that with the Bitcoin halving in 2024. Mm-hmm. So now you're going to have institutions coming in wanting to buy Bitcoin. You're going to have the halving. So now there's half as much Bitcoin entering circulation every single day. And you have this stimulus coming from a post-recession and a massive stimulus. It's just going to be crazy. Okay? It's literally going to be face melting parabolic moves to the upside. If those three things happen pretty much at the same time. That's why I'm saying $300,000 to $500,000 Bitcoin in 2025.
It's only 2 years from now.
I know.
That's only 2 years from now.
It's literally crazy, dude. People would be like, this guy's fucking crazy, but that's what they said in The Big Short.
Who was the main character?
It's Michael Burry, but
so you're Michael Burry?
I don't know who played Michael Burry. Except for I'm long. Like I'm long Bitcoin. I'm not shorting it. The Big Short was...
Oh, so you're the big long.
I'm the big long.
You're the big long.
I'm the big long Bitcoin. Oh my.
The big long Bitcoiner.
We should change the podcast name to Big Long Bitcoin.
Okay, so... Wow. Yeah. I mean, let's talk about your journey and your current thesis on Bitcoin and why you think it's the greatest form of money. Can we do that?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's see. Well, when I started in Bitcoin, I was literally on TikTok.
Okay.
Like in 2019, 2020. And then I see Bitcoin and I'm like, that's interesting. What is Bitcoin? I was just scrolling through it. I see it a few times. And because I watch the videos, the algorithm gets me.
Mm-hmm.
So then I get deep. I'm like, what is going on with Bitcoin? And I just had financial aid refunds from the school. So I've got like 10 grand burning a hole in my pocket.
Are we supposed to be talking about... Aren't you supposed to be using that for tuition?
Yeah, no. I mean, this is after tuition.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
So I had 10,000. I wanted to invest. I wanted to learn how to invest. I didn't know shit. Like I know stocks, but I don't know shit about them. And then COVID hits. So then I was like, oh, I want to invest in Zoom stock because everybody's going to move to Zoom. We're all going to be on our computers. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of got talked out of it. Like it was just speculation. Like I wanted to put like 10 grand in Zoom.
I mean, when COVID first hit, you're like,
that's what I was thinking.
This is going to be the future.
But then I got talked out of it and I really didn't know what I was doing. So I was like, okay, I'll just preserve my cash.
Smart.
The Zoom does like a fucking 10x. I was like, wait. So I still have this money burning a hole in my pocket. I'm on TikTok. I see Bitcoin. I start discovering Bitcoin, reading about it. Like, oh, a hard cap of 21 million? That seems like the scarcest asset I've ever heard of. Like, Bitcoin's the shit. Crypto's the shit. Oh my gosh. H-bar just did 40% in one day. That's like an altcoin that I just saw like on TikTok. Yeah. And then I was like, fuck it. Give me my 10 grand. And I start buying Bitcoin and all these shit coins.
Off rip.
Literally.
That's how TikTok gets you. I'm telling you.
Dude.
TikTok makes you buy things.
They got me like I was just some stupid retail investor. Because I guess I was.
Yeah.
And bro, I remember just throwing $500 at Yummy Coin. Like, I'm not even joking.
What is Yummy Coin?
Dude,
Yummy?
I'm not even joking. The coin was called Yummy Coin, and I put $500 in it.
Oh, we need to take a break. I'm going to be laughing for 5 minutes straight. I did not know this. Oh, my gosh.
And, like,
wow.
Jake Paul did like a promotional video for Yummy Coin. Yummy Coin. And I was like, oh shit, if Jake Paul's doing it, like, shit, I'm about to 10x my money right here. And I had to go.
Shit.
I had to go
Oh
through
my
some
gosh.
hoops. I had to go through some hoops just to buy it.
Oh man.
Like it probably cost me $100
What?
in Ethereum gas fees just to buy Yummy token. So I only ended up with $400 worth of Yummy token, and it cost me $500. And it went to zero. I'm curious if I still have it even somewhere.
Wait, yeah. Have you even? When was the last time you checked Yummy Coin?
It's been a long time. It's on like some wallet that I'd have to dig up.
Wow.
But-
so ever since then, you just
no.
you just left it.
It evaporated to zero.
Wow. What was it at that time? Do you remember?
I think maybe it went up to like $700, and
It's because
then
of Jake Paul, man.
and then
Yeah.
when Bitcoin started to roll over, and then the bear market began, then it went to zero fast,
Damn.
and boom. And I mean, didn't know what the fuck I was doing even then. So like, I wasn't gonna sell it. Like I was like, oh, it's down, but it's coming back.
He's gonna come back up. Yeah.
So I literally just YOLO'd 10 grand into Bitcoin and mostly altcoins. And then my portfolio was like 1,500 from 10 grand.
Because what was happening to Bitcoin at that time?
Bitcoin went from 69K,
And it started dropping.
dropped all the way to 15K, like the most recent bottom. But that whole time, it's like Bitcoin gets wrecked, but then after the altcoins do their rally, they get wrecked even harder.
Yeah.
Especially Yummy coin. Okay? So after that happened, I was just like looking at myself like, what did you just do? Like, you're an idiot. My dad was like, you're a dumbass. Shit. And I was like, I am a dumbass. Like, they fucking got me. But they're going to get more people like this next cycle too. I mean, the rules are the same, but I mean, I'll talk about that.
Okay, yeah, keep going.
So then I was like, fuck. And I was heavier into altcoins than I was into Bitcoin because I learned that the altcoins have a lower market cap. So it takes less capital to move the tokens or to multiply my money.
Yeah.
Like, meaning if Bitcoin's 500 billion and the shitcoin's only 1 billion, that means if it goes from 1 billion to 10 billion in market cap, I 10x my money.
Okay.
But if Bitcoin goes up 10 billion, then I barely made a fraction in return. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's that smaller amount of capital that allowed me to make greater gains, but just so much higher risk. And I honestly, like, I knew Bitcoin was the ultimate cryptocurrency just because it was the 800-pound gorilla. But I was like, oh, I can make more money in altcoins. Let's do altcoins.
Mm-hmm.
Evaporated fast.
So what did you do? You left your 1,500 in there still?
Yep.
When that oh, it's still in there today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I moved it all to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So then that's 2020. And then that whole time I'm just like consistently listening and learning about crypto and about altcoins, about tokenomics. James from Invest Answers, I literally watched his show every single day.
Shout out James.
Shout out. Every single day for like 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, I got to meet this guy.
You have to.
Yeah. So then throughout that process, I slowly started realizing, like, after actually doing your own research, actually reading the books that talk about money, that talk about what blockchain even is, what Bitcoin is, why Bitcoin's different from all cryptocurrencies. And then I slowly started realizing, like, wait a minute. Bitcoin's different. Like, Bitcoin is the greatest form of money we've ever seen on the face of this planet. Like, humanity has never seen something this perfect. So after I made that distinction, I started to switch my perspective. Like, wait, I got to allocate all my time in researching what Bitcoin is, and then how it works, what it means for the world, what happens if Bitcoin's implicated on a global scale. So then I just started going all my time into Bitcoin. Well, yeah. And then once I realized that it was the greatest form of money, then I started looking throughout history like what money actually is and how it's evolved over time and how we got to fiat money. And then I started to be like, okay, if throughout history we've always chosen the best form of money to serve as money, why is Bitcoin better than the money we have now? So then I started comparing the two and just digging through. But in order to do that, because I had a decent understanding for Bitcoin at that point, and in order to do that, I had to dig deep into what the current financial system is, how that works, so that I could make my decision on which one was actually better. And then the more I read about it, the more I realized what was happening. I was like, wait a fucking minute. This is all bullshit. Like, they are deliberately manipulating everybody that uses fiat money and for their own gain. And I was like, and you contrast that with Bitcoin, which is like a ledger that cannot be changed, that nobody controls. So it's incorruptible. So the reason that fiat money it doesn't work is because people can manipulate it. When people are given that ability to manipulate money, and you see it throughout history too, they literally do it every time because everybody's so self-interest oriented. So that human flaw of self-interest is the problem with any money, any form of money that we use. That is why it has always been corrupted throughout the history of the world. And we were just gifted a perfect money that nobody can control, that can restore balance throughout humanity, where nobody's manipulating it. And everybody's economical gain comes from really just them working for it instead of it being manipulated for them.
That was inspirational.
Was it?
All of it.
Nice.
From beginning to end
Nice.
of your journey of Bitcoin. You not knowing what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And where you at now?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any books that you want to suggest? To, how you started doing your own research.
Yeah.
Finding out about Bitcoin. All that.
First book that everybody needs to read is The Bitcoin Standard.
Mm-hmm.
Safety DiDomenico just put it brilliantly. It's the number one book for Bitcoin for sure.
And it breaks down exactly what Bitcoin is, what it does, properties, everything.
I think it does a good job.
Does a good job
overall of painting a picture
of
like, this is Bitcoin, this is why it's perfect.
So what are the key properties of Bitcoin, and why is it a superior form of money compared to the US dollar?
So to start with that, the only reason that it works is because it's incorruptible and it will never change. So back in like 2012, 2014, like that era of Bitcoin, it could have been corrupted because it wasn't decentralized or big enough and battle tested enough to prove that it could withstand the test of time, which is durability, one of the properties. So if Bitcoin was never going to be able to operate like 10 years from now, you had a 10-year window on Bitcoin, then it would obviously not be a store of value because you can just, it can just break, or if somebody had the ability to hack it, or if somebody had the ability to change it, then it wouldn't work from the beginning. So it was understanding that Bitcoin will not change. These rules and 21 million fixed supply, like it's set in stone, which was what makes the difference. Because, like I'm saying, in every form of money that people have chosen, the free market has chosen throughout history, when people were given the ability to manipulate it, they always did for their self-interest. So it started with knowing that Bitcoin cannot be changed.
Got it.
But also, it's pretty crazy that Bitcoin made it to this point.
Why do you say that?
Because it probably shouldn't have happened. Like, the chances of Bitcoin making it are slim to none. So that leads me into my next point, which is it can't be recreated.
Okay.
Because now that we know what it is, if somebody were to launch Bitcoin 2.0, then we already have the best proof of work. So nobody would allocate their resources to that network without any security that they were going to get any value from it. So nobody would do it. But even if you could get people to contribute to that network, in the early stages of Bitcoin, somebody could have come online and basically destroyed it if they were able to get 51% of the network.
Yeah.
So the only reason that Bitcoin survived is because Satoshi kind of pushed it along, and then people caught on, and then enough people caught on to where it was incorruptible and then decentralized, and then nobody can control it, nobody can change it. But if somebody were to try to do it again, push it along, anybody could go online, fork it, destroy it, hack it, because it's not secure enough yet. So a 2.0 can't be created.
Okay.
And if it's going to work in the first place, if we're going to have a decentralized money, Bitcoin's our best opportunity to do it. Because of what I'm saying is, if you create a 2.0 and the U.S. government already knows what Bitcoin is, okay, Bitcoin didn't work, but somebody tries to create another one, then if the U.S. just knew, like, oh, we just missed Bitcoin destroying our monetary policy and our control over monetary policy, they'd be like, what's this thing? Oh, this is Bitcoin 2.0? We're going to destroy that now while they still can. Today, it's too late. They noticed what it is. They tried to destroy it. They went after it. But it was too strong and pushed along far enough to where nobody can control it. Nobody can destroy it.
So no one can create a Bitcoin 2.0, and no one can create another cryptocurrency. I was just thinking about the fixed supply of 21 million this whole time. So no one can do that? No one can.
So if somebody were to create another cryptocurrency that had a fixed supply.
Yeah, which is one of the key properties of Bitcoin and what makes it so
they could
unique.
do that. Like, I could make one, and I could probably shill it and send it to YouTubers like Jake Paul.
Yeah.
And say, this is the next cryptocurrency.
Okay.
And say, oh, fixed supply of 10 million. It's even more scarce than Bitcoin.
Okay. But why wouldn't it catch on the success
It's
that
because
Bitcoin has?
that would have to be centralized if I was the one that controlled it. If I was the one that created it, controlled it, and pushed it, and kept it running, that means I can do anything to it. Because I'm the controller.
Oh, got it.
Of
It's
the
not
ledger.
decentralized. Yeah.
Now it's centralized. Right.
So Satoshi created Bitcoin knowing that it had to be decentralized.
Yeah.
So he just vanished on purpose.
He vanished on purpose.
How do you know he vanished on purpose?
That's my theory. Because of how important it is to be decentralized. And he knew, well, first of all, the detail that he knew in this whole thing, it's wild. Like, he had to be from the future. But, yeah, he even knew that him being anonymous was a critical element of Bitcoin's decentralization. At least.
So now he just left it up to the nodes.
Yeah, so he pushed it up far enough.
Far enough.
Until he was like, you guys got it from here.
Because they were like, who created Bitcoin? We're going to stop him. He was already gone.
And honestly, that's the most selfless act. To be able to create a decentralized money for humanity, creating what I think is closer to heaven on earth. And he just let it go and vanished. Didn't take any credit for it. That's crazy. Imagine creating something like that. Wouldn't you want to be like, that was fucking me?
I guess. Unless he was a robot. Wow, there's a lot of... I don't want to get too deep into this, but...
Could be anybody.
He could be... That thing, Satoshi Nakamoto, could be anything.
Okay, so then... Now that I know Bitcoin's incorruptible.
Yeah.
It's like... I got it. I get it. I see it. Old, too manipulated. Like, I don't need it. Like, everything that's going on here, whatever. And then I started to think about what money even is. Because, it's made a pretty big impact in all the decisions that I've had to get to this point. Like, where I was going to go to school. Shit, I don't have a lot of money. I'm going to go get a scholarship for soccer and then get good grades, and hopefully I'm going to get my tuition paid for because I don't have money. And then, all those decisions that we make throughout on a daily basis, we go to work, we sacrifice our leisure for labor to get money. If everybody's doing that, I think it's critical to understand what money is in the first place. Why are we doing all this stuff? Why do we desire to have money so much? Why are we willing to, my friend Trace is working hard labor, he's building sport courts. He's not here on the podcast because he's building sport courts in Sammamish. Why are we willing to sacrifice our time, which is the most scarce resource on the planet?
The only thing we have on Earth, yeah.
It's something you could say is more scarce than Bitcoin. It's time. Time is the reason we have scarcity for everything.
Yeah, it's true.
With enough time, you could endlessly mine gold, have infinite amount of gold. It's time being allocated to mining the gold that's scarce, or for any resource, literally. So I'm on this journey throughout history to try and understand what money is, how we've evolved into using fiat money. Why do we even need money in the first place? What is money?
What is money? And what is your definition of money?
Definition of money, I would just say it's an object that we've chosen. The free market has chosen to serve a role for storing economic value over time. I think that's the most. That's my best definition for money. But it's like it's an abstract thought that we've applied to an object to serve the role of storing economic value. Because if you think about it, it allows us to specialize for productivity. If you can make a bunch of apples at one time, like you harvest your apples, and then those apples aren't going to be able to store the value of an apple over time. So we need a medium or medium of exchange where it's not just being able to trade your apples for an orange, but being able to use something as a medium of exchange. So you sell your apple for a Bitcoin, and then you use that Bitcoin to buy whatever you want.
Okay.
It's that medium. But throughout history, it's simply been an abstract object that had the best properties of money that the free market just said, you know what? They agreed, you know what? That's the best form of money because it has these properties, and the properties have been the same throughout history.
And what are those properties that make something considered to be money?
It's what we call sound money.
Sound money. Okay.
So it needs to be scarce because if there was an infinite supply, like the dollar, if it was infinite, then anybody could create any amount of it and necessarily wouldn't be able to store your economic value over time if people can just create it at no cost to them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like in the Bitcoin standard, it tells a story about this European guy. He travels to Africa.
Okay.
And in Africa, their money, because they didn't have technology that made beads.
Yes.
The African colony, their money was beads. So then beads, like it's actually because it was scarce, they had an economy that functioned well. And because they had a scarce money. And then when this European traveler, he saw that they transacted in beads, he was like, well, I can just go home and create a bunch of beads and then take all of their resources. Like buy all of their resources with these beads that I can just go home and create for free.
Wait, he actually brought beads to Africa?
So then he was
and
like,
took all their resources?
So he was like, well, okay, if that's all you guys want is beads. Goes back, creates a bunch of beads, and then trades it for their resources. And now the African colonies are left with
Nothing.
A money that means nothing and resources that they worked to produce that they gave away for free.
Why did they choose beads as their form of money?
Because it worked for them, because it was scarce, because nobody had the ability to just create more beads because they didn't have the technology in Africa. But when this European traveler came through, he was like, oh, I can create beads.
Yeah.
And they didn't necessarily even know that existed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so scarcity is an important property of sound money. And then durability. So it needs to be able to withstand time. Okay. It needs to be able to move value throughout time. Like, I mean, we could say the US dollar in its durability, like the physical form of the dollar. It's like you keep moving that like years.
Just circulating.
Years circulating, and then it gets ripped or torn or eroded.
Okay.
So we're just comparing a paper dollar to a digital form of Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin can't be eroded. Like it's computer code.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not a physical object that like a dollar that can erode in from just being transacted. You know what I mean?
It's almost better.
Oh yeah, it's far better.
You lose a dollar bill, Bitcoin, you have $1 in your
and it can last.
Yeah.
probably longer than humanity itself. Like, infinite amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of crazy to think about. It's the most durable form of money we've ever seen. It's the most scarce form of money. It's actually the first true scarcity humanity's ever seen. Like gold, you can mine an infinite amount of gold, and that's been the best form of money throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
Divisibility. So you need to be able to divide it into smaller pieces to be able to make transactions of varying values. Like you can transact one Bitcoin and do 100 million different pieces called Satoshis. Okay. It's 100 million divisible. It's the most divisible it gets too. Fungibility is like, yeah, $1 is worth $1. One Bitcoin is worth one Bitcoin. Acceptability. So it needs to be, everybody needs to recognize it as money and then accept it as money, because if some people don't or most people don't, then how it just wouldn't work.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And then stability, which I can't argue that Bitcoin has stability at the moment as an immature asset. It's like it's only 14 years old, and arguably, if you count until like 2018 when it was actually decentralized enough to be to withstand the test of time, to actually last, or to be sufficiently incorruptible, you could say it's like 5 years old. A legitimate form of Bitcoin is like 5 years old. So I don't think it's going to be stable.
And
Eventually, but when I think about the point from now until when it gets adopted as money, like there's so much room for massive price movement. Like global assets, we're talking about equities, real estate, money, cars, art, gold, bonds. Total around 900 trillion in dollars, valued in dollars. But that's $900 trillion of global assets. And Bitcoin is worth 590 billion. So when I see Bitcoin and I notice it's actually the next evolution of money, because it has these properties better than any form of money we've ever seen in history. It's just the next evolution past fiat, because fiat's already breaking. And it's only worth 590 billion of 900 trillion in global assets. Like, it's gonna consume, I don't know how much of it, slowly over time, eating away at this $900 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't see a world where it's going from 590 billion to somewhere closer to $500 trillion in market cap, when at that point we're not even measuring in dollars. So that's kind of like a mind fuck. You're like, what's going on? Because everything is just valued in Bitcoin. But until we get to that point, I can't imagine stability.
Does that have to do with, leads me to this question. People say Bitcoin is too volatile. What do you think about that?
I think that's because it's immature. And because it takes a smaller amount of capital to move the price, like if we're talking about 500 billion coming into the space,
mm-hmm.
like that does like a 10x to Bitcoin. And then we talk about 900 trillion of global assets, and we're saying it's the greatest form of money. It's going to be volatile. and mostly to the upside. It's also this S curve of adoption. So also throughout history, when there's new technologies that everybody adopts, like the toilet, a car, cell phones, every S curve of adoption has gotten steeper and steeper as we've gone from like the 1800s to today. Every new technology that we've created, the S curve gets steeper and steeper. And Bitcoin's being adopted faster than the internet was, on a steeper curve than the internet adoption. So this S curve of adoption, the monetary value of a Bitcoin is directly tied to that adoption because it's supply and demand. If that adoption does an S curve faster than the internet, those new users want Bitcoin. I'd have to imagine Bitcoin does a similar adoption S curve in its price. And we've seen kind of like this tailing off of, they call it diminishing returns of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
We might see that S curve tick up, and Bitcoin's price does things that nobody could even imagine. Like what I think 300 to 500K in 2025. Like I really think that. Probably a little bias.
Yeah, probably. But there's some reasoning behind that. Good reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
So with these properties of money and how you just compared it to the US dollar, you'd say that Bitcoin only lacks stability compared to the US dollar, where the US dollar has all those properties that you just mentioned.
And acceptability.
And acceptability.
Kind of scalability too.
Okay.
But in order for Bitcoin to work, like we need to actively be working on Bitcoin. Like it's not just going to scale as the world's money by itself. Like we need to build things on top of Bitcoin to allow it to do that. And it's much more than just the world's money. We can talk about that's like, because it goes, when I say all roads lead to Bitcoin, it literally goes way further than money. But money is just the first best use case for it.
That Bitcoin can do?
Yeah. What Bitcoin is,
All
what it can
roads
do.
lead to Bitcoin.
But in order for Bitcoin to scale as the world's money, like facilitating all global wealth,
yeah,
there needs to be stuff built on top of Bitcoin to allow it to do that. Can't do it by itself because the trilemma, the decentralization, scalability, and security.
Need all three.
You need all three, but you can't have all three. You can only have two of the three. So Bitcoin is fully secure and fully decentralized, but it lacks the scalability. Now that scalability just needs to be implemented on top of it. By me.
I was gonna say, how can scalability?
Well,
gonna say, how can scalability can be added on top of that in order for the trilemma to be complete?
You gotta build applications on top.
Yeah.
The best application that we have right now is Lightning Network.
Lightning Network.
Lightning Network is a layer on top of Bitcoin where you open a channel, and then you can send unlimited amount of Bitcoin on that channel.
Got it.
And the only transactions that happen on Bitcoin are when you move in and out of the channel and back to the layer one. But if we're talking about facilitating global wealth and everybody making transactions, like you go to the grocery store and you're buying a banana with Bitcoin, like now you're opening up a channel just to buy that banana and you want to close the channel. Just one purchase of Bitcoin or purchase of a banana. So if we're thinking about those happening all over the world for all wealth around the world, that's not going to work. I don't feel like it's going to work.
Why not?
Because in order to open and close a channel, you need to make a transaction on Bitcoin's layer 1. And all of those opening and closing of channels, I feel like it's going to be too many transactions. If we're talking about the whole world.
Too many transactions on the Lightning Network.
Too many transactions on the layer 1 because...
And it can't handle all of it.
Mm-mm.
Got it. I see. Oh, and that's why scalability is a problem.
Is because the layer 1 can't do enough transactions.
I see.
It's the block size, remember?
Yeah. I
the
see.
1 megabyte block can only do this many transactions, and there's only one block every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's needed because it allows computers around the world, more computers around the world, to run that 1 megabyte block node.
Yeah.
So it's further decentralized.
Yeah. So then moving from sound money, then it goes to what? There's sound money, there's commodity money, there's representative money. Can you explain all of that and how it leads to fiat money, or how it led to fiat money?
So sound money is Bitcoin. Sound money is all the properties that I talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Sound money is having perfect properties. That's the definition of sound money. But in terms of how we evolved, we started at the barter system. So
we're going back in time right now.
Yeah, we're going back throughout time. So we needed a medium of exchange to get through the barter. And then that medium of exchange is where the object comes in, or we start using objects that have more of the properties of sound money to be that medium of exchange.
Okay.
So that object evolved throughout time. Whichever object we had that best suited the sound money properties. So we went from like commodity, then after medium of exchange, we went to commodity money. So like we would use like grain or rice. And then the best forms of commodity monies were the scarce metals because they had more properties of sound money. So then now we're going through scarce metals, but the economy is scaling at a rapid pace. And then now it's hard to send large portions of precious metals like across the world.
Mm-hmm.
So then they had to create something like a receipt for these precious metals, which is started as like a greenback, which was like the early dollar. It's like warehouses would hold your gold or silver and then give you a receipt for that gold and silver. And then you would just transact in those receipts because that was much easier than carrying around your gold. But it's when the people at the gold reserve realized, hey, like we can just make more receipts. Like, hey, they're never going to know. They're never going to know. We can just create more, guys.
Oh, man.
And then that's fractional reserve banking.
Yep.
But then, the bank runs can come in because you're giving out more receipts. And then when everybody comes back for their gold and you don't have it, like, it's fraudulent. But that's literally how fiat money still works today. So now you get into these receipts, like, then it turns into the dollar, which is backed by gold. But then when we realize, like, hey, everybody's coming for their gold, like, we don't want to give up all of our gold. Let's just scale the economy, come up with Keynesian economics that justifies a reason for being able to print more money without backing it by gold, because they didn't have the ability to accumulate more gold at no cost to them. So they were like,
I see.
So they were like, okay, well, if we just sever the ties, the gold standard, then we can just print infinite amount of money. And I don't know how that just snuck by everybody.
People are just used, and it's crazy to think that people are just like this is okay. The government can just print all this money. My money's really not. They don't have my money.
They think, oh, he severed the gold ties. Like, oh yeah, good move, Nixon. Good move. Like he gets more popularity. But in reality,
why did he do that? Oh, I mean, you explained some of the reasons why, because it was easier.
Yeah,
costs and all that.
I think people were coming back to the United States and claiming their gold. And then after a while, he was like, we don't want to be giving up all this gold.
Yeah.
And then he wanted to scale the economy, which is that liquidity that we're talking about today. It's like they put liquidity in, take it out. But it's what gives them the ability to do it.
Exactly.
But they wanted to be able to do it. Self-interest. Country, America's interest. Because once we did it, and then we have the world reserve currency, and then we can print our money and buy things like the European coming to Africa with the beads. We're literally doing that.
Mm-hmm.
The United States literally does that to everybody around the world.
I mean, we
put that into perspective, dude. Like, I'm an American, but that's fucked up.
I mean, the United States has to keep their reputation somehow as the global superpower.
It definitely enhances our ability to live the lifestyle that we have.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you're right. Can't hate it too much.
Yeah, in a way.
But that's not going to work in the future.
It's still messed up.
The future is not, it's not going to fly, especially because we have an alternative.
Bitcoin. So then how do you see Bitcoin as the next evolution of money?
I see the infrastructure being built out so that Bitcoin can scale on a global scale. Like all facilitation of money and wealth throughout the entire world is going to be in Bitcoin, because the free market, as we went throughout history, like, go from grain to gold, and then not being able to move gold, so they moved to the dollar. This migration throughout the evolution of money, it's the free market choosing the best object that serves the role of money. So it really just takes education, infrastructure, ease of use, until everybody can see it, implement it, and they don't even necessarily need to understand it, because they don't understand fiat money.
Mm-hmm.
So if they just wake up one day and someone says, you just got your paycheck in Bitcoin, they're like, shit, okay. And then on with their life. Now they're using Bitcoin. So it's just the infrastructure needs to be built out.
Mm-hmm.
Education needs to happen so that people can build that infrastructure and then educate those that need to know. And it creates a more prosperous and peaceful humanity, like in the whole world. Like if you imagine how countries finance wars, they can just keep printing money.
Yep.
And then allocating that capital to the war. I mean, if you're in a life or death situation, rise or fall, you're going to print as much money as you possibly can to fight that war.
True.
So in a world where you don't have infinite amount of money, and the only money that you have is in Bitcoin because you've exported resources and imported less, or because you have a dominant economy, like those should be the rules that decide how wealthy a country is. And then if you want to finance a war, like, you're going to have to get your citizens on board, and you're going to have to raise the capital to fight that war, because you can't print it. We're talking about Bitcoin. Everybody's using Bitcoin.
Okay.
Now we're getting into like the all roads.
All roads lead to Bitcoin.
Yeah. Now we're getting into like soft war. Jason Lowry, where he's saying it's all like a power projection game throughout the history of the world. But we don't have to get into that today, because that shit's wild. But in a world where you can't just finance infinite wars, and you're only going to fight what you have to, and your citizens have to be on board in fighting that war because they're financing it too, then it's a more peaceful world.
And so with that, are there any additional challenges to Bitcoin achieving mass adoption?
I think the biggest challenge is education. Probably trumping these oligarchs or people that are currently have all the money.
Okay.
Because they're not going down easy. But education, honestly, because if everybody knew what I knew, then they would be like, wow, I'm not using dollars. My purchasing power is being destroyed by dollars forever. And Bitcoin is going to be worth more forever. It's obvious. So, education. Probably the number one thing that needs to happen. You got any more?
Any more questions? I mean, that really concluded all roads lead to Bitcoin.
All roads do lead to Bitcoin.
Yeah, that was a good. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of more questions. But you did a great job explaining functions of money, properties of money, what money is. Took a while to get into what money is, but I mean, finally got that out of the way.
Yeah. Well, when all roads lead to Bitcoin, I can start going down other roads and then you get sidetracked. Gotta turn around. Yeah. But there's a reason I'm obsessed with it. So future's gonna be exciting, tell you that. See what happens, how it unfolds.
Projections for 2025, like you said.
2025, I feel like that's going to be like an awakening where everybody's like, holy fuck.
It's going to be too late.
No, I don't think 2025 will be too late.
Well, when Bitcoin's at 500K,
it's going to be a lot harder.
It's going to be,
not too late, because it's never too late.
Yeah, that's true. I just meant in terms of the price now compared to 30,000 compared to 500,000.
A lot of people are going to see that and be like, yeah, too late. I'm out.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I'm too late.
It's too late. But then that's only the beginning of Bitcoin being known. Everyone's going to believe in it.
And when they're sitting there and everything's on fire and they're like, how do I get out of here? And they're like, and then they see Bitcoin in the distance. Like through the smoke, they see Bitcoin and they run and jump to Bitcoin. Like it's the inevitable.
That's all roads lead to Bitcoin. That's all roads right there.
Okay. Well, this is episode 3 of the Bitcoin Profits Podcast. What is money? My name is Mateo.
And I'm Leo.
We're signing off. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Bitcoin profits and data.